Good morning, all, and welcome to Kalbardr's Corner for this episode of Coffee with Cal. I am Lord Kalbardr Geiler, Companion of the Meridian Cross, Companion of the Argent Comet, Companion of the Argent Lamp, Companion of the Falcon's Faith, and Reaper, coming to you live, as always, from the Barony of the Osprey on the southern coast of Meridiace. Now, today we have a special set of guests. It's our first royal visit to the channel. I'd like to welcome their Highnesses Sarah and Patrick, the Prince and Princess of Pestilence, or the Prince and Princess of the Mists. Good morning, Your Highnesses.
Good morning.
Thank you for joining me today. Would you like to tell us a little bit about yourselves, give us a little background, or who you are as people in princes?
Sarah.
Oh, okay. I'll go first. Obviously, I'm Sarah, Princess of the Mists. I have been in the SCA for almost 4 years. My 4-year anniversary is coming up at 12th night this year.
Oh wow!
Yeah. Right. It's a little crazy. It's we don't dip our toes in the water. At least I don't. I try to jump head in, and that's exactly what I did. That's the basics.
I'm Patrick, currently Prince of the Mists, Prince of Pestilence, thanks to COVID. And sometimes I feel like the forever prince, since we've been sitting in this seat for over a year now. Mm-hmm. I'm originally from the East, was knighted in the East, and moved out to the West 20 years ago. I've been in the SCA roughly about 26 years or so.
Interesting. So we have a broad range of experience, the two of you. I like that. All right. So as always, today's show is coffee themed. So today's coffee of choice for me is the Coffee and Chicory from Community Coffee. It is a weird choice, but it's something I fell in love with when I was working over in Glen Albin in Louisiana. So it's a bit dark, but I love it. So what about you guys? What are you drinking this morning?
I have Pete's Coffee. It's a nice local Bay Area brand that I think most people. I think it's expanded all over the United States, I would guess. But it's
I've never heard of Pete's Coffee.
Pete's is dark and a little bitter, a little bit like my soul.
So. I knew that was coming. Like that's the joke you have to make there.
I know. Touche, Sarah. So it's quite delicious if you like something a little darker, a little more bitter.
And what about you, Patrick? I know you're not drinking coffee over there because you're apparently.
That's right. I have a piping cold glass of chocolate Ovaltine milk, which is my morning drink, I suppose. That orange juice. I'm just not a fan of coffee. I never have, and the only reason is I never enjoyed the taste.
Right.
So that's a huge barrier.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, my dad always told me I wasn't old enough to drink coffee, so I drank it despite him initially, and never went back since. So, all right. So, and also, welcome to all you out there in the comments. I see some people popping up watching. So, if you please let us know you're watching, introduce yourselves, say hey in the comments. We will see it and we'll wave at you. And if you say something witty, I might throw it up on the screen. So please do that. But I think let's jump into today's topic. So today's topic is the fighter-consort relationship, and I picked this one specifically for Sarah because. And it's funny that I've actually gotten 2 different episodes and actually a whole stream out of that one Krapow chat. But we were in the Krapow chat or in the toast after the Krapow, and you went on a bit of a rant. And you don't remember this rant apparently, but it was a very well-informed rant. So I was like, we need to do a show about that.
I mean, to be fair, I said I don't remember yesterday. So
that's true.
Let's.
I also have to give the caveat because I've seen that. Both Patrick and you have been very busy on other shows this week. I do have to say that I booked this show before Logan booked either of his, and that was actually the entire point of me reaching out to you that evening was to stir up crap with Logan from Ask the Knights Live. That was actually my initial motivation for both reaching out to both you and Sean that evening, was to mess with my my fellow YouTube star Logan because he had not booked either of you yet on his shows, so I had to do it first. So even though you appeared on his show before you appeared on mine, I booked you first. Let me just put that out there in the world. Okay.
I'm so glad we're a chess piece in this game.
It's on the grand YouTube scale of the game, right? No, I love Logan. We have to give him so much crap, so I have to continue to give him crap. It's part of what we do as fellow contributors to the world. All right, so now you're talking about the whole fighter-consort relationship and how you approached it and how you and Patrick approached it. And it was an interesting topic to me. because I've never fought in Crown List. I've considered it. It's something I'm planning to do in a year or so once we're back from COVID and they figure out what they're doing with Crown List. But I have some thoughts and questions about it. But I want to hear sort of what your approach with it is. Sort of, why you chose to be consort, why you chose to be consort for Patrick specifically, and then Patrick, why you chose to take Sarah as your consort for this, and like how you guys sort of approach the whole mentality, and then we'll get into some maybe specific questions about it. So go ahead.
Oh, Patrick, you started this. This was all your idea. So I'll let you.
Yes, it was. All right. Well, Sarah's a friend. And I am married, and my wife, unfortunately, is not very active in the SCA, although she does support me very much, even in the SCA. And when it came time to fight for either Coronet or Crown, I felt like it wouldn't be fair to my wife, Chris, if I were to drag her out to these things, and if I were to win, then she would have to become very active in the SCA, a realm where she currently isn't and may not know all of the people.
Sure.
So we decided that, I should find someone who is very active in the SCA and would enjoy the position. And so Sarah, being a friend, I thought would make a great fit. She's also fantastic with people, I'm okay, but she's great. So I had to ask her consort at the time, I suppose, for tournaments to see if I could borrow Sarah for a couple of tournaments, and was kind enough to be given the green light. So then for Coronet, I think more than Crown. I think I fought for 1 Crown for you and 1 Coronet before, and then this one, which, I got your hat.
The third time's the charm, right? is what they say. All right, so this is a long-standing relationship with the two of you. So I guess, when was your first Crown List? You said how long ago was that?
Oh, it's probably
That was a March.
Time is distorted now since
right. 10 years ago, yeah.
It was March
probably about a year and a half.
Yeah, it was March Crown of 2019.
Yeah.
Oh, gotcha. I guess you guys have a little more opportunity over there. You have more availability for Crown.
Yeah, 3 crowns. 3 crowns per year.
Yeah, that makes my meridian brain break. When you guys talk about it. I'm like, oh yeah, West, like people just fighting the West Crown because they want to. I'm like, but why? But okay, you're right. Okay, I have to remember that I'm not in Meridiers, and not everybody thinks the same way we do. And
well, I think we're the only kingdom with every 4 months.
Right. And then when having that many principalities close by that are available to you to fight in as well, and that's the whole thing. Yeah. So okay. So Sarah, what was your sort of the other half of that now from you?
Well, I wasn't really expecting anything. I've had the same fighter consort for a couple of years while I've been here, and she has not really fought because of injury, but it was probably the easiest decision I ever made, accepting Patrick's offer. There, as he mentioned, we are friends. We are in the same war unit. We hang out outside of the SCA. His squires and myself, we have this little bond, and we have Friendsgiving or Friendsmas, wherever we can all fit it in the schedule, and we all just sort of hang out. So it was probably the easiest decision. Patrick's kind of opposite of my personality.
Right.
So it works really well where I'm very rash, like super perky, bubbly, where he is a little bit more thoughtful and like, let's take our time, let's figure this out, let's do this, where I'm just like, tiny.
It gives you a balance, which is nice, I guess, right?
Which is important.
Right. I guess, that's a good topic to look at. So let's look at that first. So that balance, right? So when you're looking for a consort, so both of you had other relationships, whether it be mundane or so. Sarah, are you mundanely attached versus STA attached outside of this as well? If you don't mind me asking. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. So somebody one married, one single. Okay. But you said you had a fighter previously that was your fighter. So how did you pick that person initially, and then obviously you said because of injuries they're not fighting currently. What was your initial thoughts for that?
Well, when she asked me, I think I was like 6 or 7 months in, and she asked me because we're really good friends. Again, she's in our war unit, and I think it starts there. It develops with a friendship. It's a lot like a mundane relationship. It really, really is, where you want to get along with someone, you want to have common interests, you want to be able to do that because it makes communication so much better. And that's the key to a lot of this, is being able to have a conversation with someone and not necessarily have a conversation and not someone have a conversation at you, if that makes sense.
No, completely. Yeah, no, that's right. Okay, so you're looking at so we talked about balance. We talked about communication. That's two good points that we should touch on. So let's look at that balance thing. So you talked about the balance of the two of you. When you look at that, what is the thing you're looking for? Do you need? And again, so I've never sat on a throne, never sat a crown, so I've never done that job. Talked to a lot of people who have, and so as far as your experience in this so far, I know this is a little different than your ordinary crown sitting because of the pandemic. But when you're looking for that, what are you really looking for as far as that balance is concerned? You need somebody who is your exact opposite. Is it better to have somebody that is closer to who you are? Like, what's your thoughts, either one of you? So, Patrick, do you have any thoughts on that, or what you're looking for from Sarah specifically?
Well, I think the best reigning teams or couples are ones that complement each other, have different strengths. I'm very much a cross that bridge when we get to it sort of person, and so I'm not always the most prepared. Sarah, on the other hand, is very prepared. She likes to have things figured out beforehand, and that's a huge win for me, since I'm not really good at that sort of thing. I think that fit was very important. The fact that we just get along is massive. Without that easy relationship, I'm not sure what reigning would be like. I guess that's it. What do you think, Sarah?
I agree with you 100% on both of those things. I know you're on your first topic, but I guess organization would be another topic in this as well. But where I am, maybe I'm pretty good at speaking. Patrick's exactly opposite in the sense he's an amazing writer. So I'm always like, will you look at this? Will you do this? So all of those complements, where they complement each other, they are different.
Right. Interesting. Okay. So it's literally like you're looking at. I guess it's a business relationship, right?
Yeah.
So the two of you have no romantic attachment. The two of you have no sexual attachment, or if you do, it's it's outside of your crown parts. So you really have to look at that business arrangement of we're running this as a business. What business skills do you need? And realistically, it's a job, right? Whereas there's a whole lot of fun of giving out awards and being pretty, right? Being crowned is a job just like any other. Yep. So I guess having those, having the written or the oral skills, that makes a lot of sense. I like that. So we actually had a comment or a question coming through chat. We'll bring up here. I think is a good one. So contracts are supposed to be inspiring. So what does it mean to you to be inspirational? And how do you achieve that from a non-relationship perspective?
Oh, for me, inspirational as far as being Prince, or even just a night in the society, is a matter of allowing myself to act in such a way that when people look upon me, they see a knight, have a bearing of a knight, and hopefully, right now, the bearing of a prince. In other words, I will be mindful of what I say and when I say it. I will try to reflect the values of the office of the principality, and always be welcoming to everyone. I mean, I very much look at reigning as not so much being a prince, although we are that prince and princess, but being a custodian of the principality. Because technically, we're here for 6 months, and then we're gone. Well, that's most times. And then somebody else will take the office. So really, in a way, the principality right now is run more by the people behind us than it is by us. We get the last say, sure, but it's the people that do all of the work of setting up events and get everything organized that are the soul of the principality. We are basically here to make sure we don't mess it up. Right. To make sure we leave the principality at least as good as we found it, hopefully a little better. If we got lucky.
The goal is always better, right? But at least as good as where you got in there. That makes sense.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, no, that makes sense. Sarah, any thoughts?
Well, and I think too, if you're talking about a fighter consort,
right?
A piece of inspiration. Inspiration is incredibly personal. I might be Patrick. Me inspiring Patrick may be very different than what inspires my other fighter. So it's a highly personal thing. So I think it's different for everyone. So I think what I'm super good at, Patrick's talked about, is peopling, and I think and the way I can connect with people, and I think he finds that sort of inspiring, and we sort of talked about that, and that's sort of where it all started.
Sure.
But it's personal, and find what brings you joy, I think, and that's what's incredibly inspiring. And how can you can look at someone and see that something is making them happy, and to me, that's incredibly inspiring.
Honestly, that's sort of a good quote in general. Like, let's remove all of it. Like, just make yourself happy. Do what makes you happy. That's a great sort of just generalized approach to the SCA. I think if more people did that, I think we'd have a better society overall. Oh, excuse me. So, fair warning, I am currently sick. If you can't tell why so if I start snotting or like I just ignore me, I'm dying on the inside.
I have a tissue too because allergies.
Yeah. We've all. My girlfriend she works in daycare, so she brings home all the germs from all the little snotling. So we've all sort of, and her doctor told her she had acute sinusitis, and then I caught it. So I'm not sure how I caught her sinusitis, but whatever. So we're all just dying here, but it's fine. All right. So oh man. Okay. So this is an interesting topic to me, and this is sort of when I was looking at. So obviously, like I've not fought in Crown before, but I'm looking toward that. That's the goal, right? The goal is always to be the best fighter in the kingdom by winning Crown. So I have an interesting thing that I want to sort of talk about. So I have a wife and a girlfriend. I'm poly. For anybody who doesn't watch my channel, I've known that. So, and both of them are lovely people, and both are very inspirational to me. And I wear both of their favorites on my belt. And we've talked about that. And so when I go to fight in Crown list at some point, which one of them do I fight for? Right? That's a fun thought, because now I've got sort of, and we all three live together. So we're sort of in an equal relationship, even though one is a wife, one is a girlfriend. So then I've also started thinking, well, maybe I need to split the difference and not fight for either one of them and move to sort of something like a more business-oriented relationship versus a personal relationship. And, and how would I deal with that? So that's really interesting thing, hearing this actually sort of making me lean more in that direction, because I think it makes sense from a logistical perspective, having those skill sets versus having someone that is strictly just there, right? And I'm not saying, don't let me disparage any past queens of any of the kingdoms. I think the consort in that is a very important job, that they're not just the person who happens to be sitting in the chair. They have duties, right? Even though they may not be defined is the same, but there are things they have to do, both to balance out their crown, but also to sort of inspire the populace, right? So like having somebody that can work with me on that business level, it makes sense. So when you guys looked at that, is there any other thought to, so the two of you don't live together, right? So that's another thing I would look at, right? So that was the thing of, not only are you bringing in two different skill sets, you're also bringing in two different monetary pools, right? And to look at it from a logistical perspective, there's also money involved in being crowned. It's expensive. So having two different people, two different couples, two different, unattached people with their own pools also helps that. Is that something you guys found as well, that there was benefit to that?
Well, so nice that you should bring that up. I think I owe Sarah about $400 or so.
Fair. Okay.
Well, she tends to prepare items for court or what have you, and or order stuff online. And it's great at court where all of these things are given to people who are deserving. However, that's again, this is not something that enters my mind to do during the everyday. While that does easily fall into Sarah's strong suit.
I do agree on one point because it was your idea to order mittens ears. That was all you.
One of our heads of court, we have 3. One day at an event was wearing mittens. And so I started referring to her as Mittens. And to me, that means a cat. I liked it so much, we liked it so much that we decided to get her a set of ears to wear anytime, really.
Right.
And she does. So that's kind of fun. And her husband is now Mr. Mittens.
Well, of course, if he wasn't, I would have been offended, actually. So that's funny. Our current king of Seneschal is she has a very long Arabic name, but she's called Mittens. That's her. He's like, and she's called Mittens. That's just her, and she's our Seneschal. So yeah. I'm not sure if it's for the same reason, but yeah, it's funny. So, okay, so yeah, so I think again, from the balance thing there, so that's interesting.
Yeah, there is I mean, any rain anywhere, I'm guessing there is a financial component to it. Hopefully, it's not too high. I think it's possible to get ridiculous on rains, and it ending up costing, $5,000 or $10,000 for a rain, which for a lot of people, especially here in California, that's a huge chunk of change when you're trying to pay the rent and all of that sort of thing. So yeah, I suppose over 2 different households, you are splitting it somewhat. But I have to catch up and make sure that the princess gets what she's owed.
Make sure she gets her allowance, right?
And it's you can when you rain. I've heard rains costing $10,000, but I've also heard rains costing little to none. One of the points of advice I got when I think right after we stepped up was sometimes you have to allow your populace to do certain things for you because they want to.
Sure. And
sometimes maybe if you don't have a ton of money, it allows them to sort of step in and fill that. And it's a very special thing when that sort of magic happens. So sometimes allowing them, giving them the opportunity.
Right.
Do it. We did have an auction, and that was a little bit more for my benefit because at that point, I think I had just started working full time right when Patrick won.
Sure.
And I wasn't quite sure what my financial state was going to be. So it was that was really helpful, and a lot of people pitched in and made stuff, and it was auctioned and made me cry a lot.
Well, that brings up, you made a good point there too of letting people do things for you. But I know that's a hard thing for a lot of people to do is letting their populace serve them, right? So I know it's actually I'll say a complaint I have about my current Baron and Baroness is they're very no, we got it, we'll do it ourselves, right? They don't let the barony do stuff for them. They're both peers in their own right. They're both their own people, right? And they're both physically capable of doing it. They're both strong as an ox. But yeah, part of that is having the populace serve in that role because and this is a conversation that actually Sir Helga and I have had, and I had to bust her chops on it because she doesn't like. The West is very about they don't use titles. It's not it's okay, don't. But that's part of the populace serving those royals, right? It's using the titles, using the things, and doing the bowing and the carrying. It's part of the game we play. And I think that extends to letting the populace as a whole support the crown in whatever things that the case, whether it's gifts or carrying or money or whatever. I think that's important to let them do that when they can. Don't demand it, right? You're not demanding taxes, but but accepting those gifts when they're there, so that because you are the inspiration for the kingdom and all that, or the principality in this case. I think that's an important thing to remember, at least from my end. It's one thing I've always tried to take in from when I'm sitting in one of those positions, to remember that.
Well, imagine.
Or if you're,
go ahead.
Go ahead. All right. If you're anything like me, you have to get used to people wanting to do things for you, because you've been doing the SCA for decades, and you just take care of your stuff, and you help others when they need help and all that sort of stuff. But suddenly they want to unpack your car for you and repack it at the end of the event and so on. And it's like, that just seems odd and counter to the way I've been doing things for decades. And here's a fun bit. When we became heirs, we had a coronet or a circlet, I guess, for being an heir. And so that was my first experience of wearing a magic hat. And so when we walk into an event, suddenly, as people walk by, they bow. And it was the weirdest thing. Like people are bowing to me and stuff. And it just didn't register that way in my brain. For me, it was like, oh, they've dropped something and they're looking for it on the ground, And I kept stopping like, oh, they dropped something. And it took a while for that to work itself out, because it's just not intuitive for me.
Sure. Gary, you had something?
Well, and one of the things too, the same person is full of wisdom. Was also reminded me too. So say someone is trying to unload your car and you tell them no. You've just put a damper on their game. So it's being very mindful of how we all play and how we all interact.
Right. Yeah, no, and I think that's the exact point I made to Helga when we first started talking. Was by you saying no, you can't use my titles, you're literally hurting me in the game I play. Right, you're killing the magic that it is. Right, because at the end of the day, we get it. Everybody's going to work Monday morning. It's all like we're all human beings. They're all of the equal standing in the world. But for this 5-minute period, for that one weekend, you're the princess. I'm the servant. Like that's how this functions, and that's part of what people enjoy about it. So, and I know not everybody gets off on that. I get it, but that's the game we're playing. So let's embrace that a little bit, right? All right. So we had another question come up in the chat that I think actually is another thing I want to talk about. So you guys don't live together, right? So that brings up a lot of logistical things. So I know, for me, when I get ready to go to an event, there's 3 of us. We have 3 adults all packing stuff into a car, getting stuff there. And that's all I'm worried about. I'm getting our stuff there. So how do you guys handle, so obviously, did you all go to events before pandemic started together? What was your sort of, how many events did y'all get to go to before everything shut down?
3 years worth.
I'm sorry, as far as, as Crown or as Cornet, did y'all do anything together, right?
Oh, because Great West, you weren't there because you weren't feeling well. I don't think you went to.
Right.
We didn't sit though as heirs. We didn't sit, but I'm not sure. Did we go together? It's been a year. That's.
I think as far as traveling to events in the same car kind of thing, we've done that maybe once.
Maybe.
Yeah, the one at the university in.
Oh, well, we went down to Monterey together, but that's after we stepped up.
True.
MDR, but
true.
Not before.
Well, here's the thing, though. For most things, right now we have 2 cars. She has her car, I have mine. Actually, I use my wife's car for events. It doubles the amount of space we can. Use as far as transporting stuff. I generally carry the thrones, so strangely enough, that takes up a good amount of the car. So we certainly, while raining, we tend to use both vehicles, or Sarah will be traveling with friends who have a larger vehicle, kind of thing. And I'll just either travel alone or with a squire or something like that.
Yeah, because you also have the feast gear. I have largesse and newcomers, so kind of works out.
Just split the load essentially, and then if y'all need something from the other, you just grab it when you need it, like if one of you are going or not.
Yeah, he lives 20 minutes from me, so
okay. Right. That was a question. How far apart are you? Because I could see. So, like, I know how. Forgive my ignorance. How big is the Mist as a whole? Like, as far as the kingdom wise, what's your geographical size?
It's pretty big.
Right.
I don't know if you're familiar with the Bay Area.
I know what California is.
Well, here's the thing with California, and specifically East Bay and South Bay, the Mist will span between East Bay and South Bay, so it includes both those. And as far as traveling distance, South Bay for me is, depending on the time, maybe a 2.5 hour journey. Okay. And that's not the limits of the Mists either. It's rather large, and part of it is just plain old traffic here in California. But so traveling from one end to the other, I'd imagine be 4 hours?
I mean,
5?
It's Monterey all the way up through Napa. So that's sort of that coastal line there. Yeah, easily, depending on traffic and what day of the week you're going. If it's a Friday, don't bother.
Right. Okay, so that brings up an interesting question. So 4 hours, right? That's a day trip in Meridian. Let me just bring that up. Because it's 8 hours from one side, or 8 to 10 hours from one side of the kingdom to the other, right? So that brings up an interesting point from my thought would be like, is there a benefit to living separately? So, okay, you guys are only 20 minutes apart, but you don't get the benefit of like, because I could see if one of you was in the top half of the kingdom or the principality, one of you is in the bottom half of the principality, right? Then you've got you can sort of show up as the crown or as the cornet to more stuff, right? So one of my thoughts is, so I live in Lower Alabama. I am literally about as far south in the kingdom as you can go. And I was like, oh, well, if I had, my consort living in, say, Tennessee, or, in the northern half of the kingdom, it gives us, as the crown, more options to go to stuff on a daily basis. Right? We can each day trip an event separately, and then show up together when we need to do, the big stuff, right? So that was always an interesting thought, because I think that the crown is a symbol, whether it's the king or the queen showing up or the princess showing up. It's a symbol of the thing. And having one there is good. Having both there is better, but having one there at least gives you that royal appearance. So like having them separated, or having on different schedules, or sort of having where you can visit things more often separately. Whereas if it was like me and my wife together, we're always going to she's never going to go anywhere without me, and sort of vice versa. Well, I say that actually, I would go places without her because of medical issues. Like she wouldn't go without me, so we're always she's never going to go somewhere on her own. Whereas some, what I'll call a business consort might go to an event without me, right? Because we do that all the time. So I think that brings up an interesting point. So the other half of the question is, because you guys are living separately now, especially during COVID, so as far as organizational things, right? So documents, meetings, organizing systems, how do you guys stay organized together? Obviously with Sarah running it clearly, what's your sort of system to keep you guys on the same page as a crown when you're not, basically talking every night?
That's really an entirely Sarah sort of question.
Right.
Sarah and the heads of court really keep things on track, and Sarah communicates to me either via text or Facebook, I suppose.
Mm-hmm. Well, we also get to see each other. We have every other week, our local practice has an online meeting, so at least, we all can connect, and that the squires are there. This last week was a fun one, where we had a couple people from outside the kingdom, and it was more like a fighter practice instead of a social.
Sure.
A few hours. That was really, really fun. So we do connect that way, and that's important. But during the times where there's no events, there's not a ton to do except keep morale. So it's posting on Facebook. I just put something in our kingdom, like a predictive text game. And so people have been playing that, and that's really fun. It's just keeping people interested and reminding them that you're still there. If you need anything, we're still here. Right.
Have you guys been doing courts and stuff, or are y'all non-court?
Well, we've taken part in crown courts of the kingdom, but I don't think we've had a principality court since COVID started.
But I try to go to almost anything that happens. Like I go to all the crapos because they happen here, and that's important to have representation. I go to, like, we had an event a few weeks ago, so I try and go. If they're here, I will go if I can. Go.
Yeah.
It's interesting. In the age of COVID and all of that, our role to some degree has changed in the sense that, well, we're not going to events, we're not sitting in courts. But we are trying to do stuff that will let the people know that there will be an end to this, and there will be a day when we come back together, and not to forget the SCA, and not to forget, how we used to come together and pal around with everyone, meet new people, meet old people, all that sort of stuff. So the job has kind of become one of letting people know we're still here.
Right.
The kingdom is still here. The SCA is still here.
Yeah, no, that's largely why I started doing stuff online. Like I try to participate as much as I can. Whereas I am just a person, right? I am not a sitting crown. I'm not anybody of terrible importance, right? So my showing up doesn't have the same impact as a sitting princess or a sitting crown showing up does. But I still think supporting those activities is important because it does help keep that even if it's just that little bit of dream alive. So yeah, that's a great point. Let's see. I'm reading.
I have a slight point of contention because you just said that what you're doing, something about not being important, because what you're doing is very important. You're chronicling. Right. Oh, this kitty. Yeah, you're chronicling, and you're talking to people. That's really important. Getting not just that's all the people that you're talking to. You're getting things recorded. They're here for posterity's sake. That's really important. And you're contributing. You may not know this, but you could be someone's savior. You could be out there really helping someone get through a rough time. So what you do is very important. Don't forget that.
No, I think you're right. You're absolutely right.
I think this phenomena of all of these podcasts, certainly in the SCA, are maybe one of the only good things to come out of COVID. They're doing the work. All of you and other podcasters are doing the work of giving people something to think about and go to on a weekly basis. Right. It's a huge deal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And that's, I did not mean that I was not, I more meant when I was talking about my lack of importance, right? I more mean as a figurehead or sort of the symbol within the SCA, right? I completely agree with what myself and others are doing online is really keeping the dream alive, and that's part of why I do it. I more meant like it's not it's the prince showing up, like that means something because of the symbols that you carry, right? Is more that's what I meant, and that's but thank you for that though. And yes, we're all just people. We're all just people. I get it.
Yeah.
Right.
It's true. I do that. There's a few places I like to go. Sometimes before our BART practice, I go up to one of the baronies that's not in our principality. I go up, and I keep saying that. And I visit with them, and I visit with them on nights we don't have our BART practice. Right. And someone will say, "Your Highness," I say, "Not right now, because I just want to hang out with my friends and be with you. So let's take that off and put that aside, and remember." Once it, like Christina said it best, Nissa said it best, we are all just people.
Right. So there's a question that came into the chat that I have to bring up because apparently it's important. Who is your favorite head of court and why is it Kelsey?
Well, I will never pick favorites, but it's going to be Kelsey in this instance because she's my pelican and I don't want to die.
Right. That's important. Always pick your hero if you have to.
Yeah, I wouldn't pick a favorite either. All three are far too helpful and important. Though I would say that I lean a little bit towards Mittens just because it's a really cute name.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's just sheer cute factor. I can agree with that.
But I'll tell you, there's no three better people to do the job than it's more of Kent, Kelsey Ellsworth, and Mistress Margaret Grimm. They are incredible humans, pillars in the SCA. And I'm going to say this only once, the three of you. You are my bosses. Never again.
Anybody who wants, you can just rewind that on YouTube. Just keep playing.
Yeah,
it.
it's going to be a
I'll
gift
clip it
now.
out for you later.
It's going to be a gift now.
Yeah, I will have to clip that out as soon as anybody needs it. I can edit this afterwards. So that actually, so you mentioned, so you're so you have a pelican currently. So are you currently still belted as sitting as crown as a protege, or what's your sort of what's that status for you?
Everything I do, regardless if I'm a princess or not, reflects on her.
Sure.
So I would say I don't necessarily have a belt, for instance. I do wear her favor if I have a belt on. I will usually, or I have it with me, because that's important to me. My relationship with her is important.
Right.
And anything I do, if I step into a hole and twist my ankle, people are going to think of her. If I open my mouth and say something dumb, people are going to think of her. So it's a constant reminder.
Interesting. Okay, so this is sort of off topic from our initial thing, but I think it sort of plays into I guess it's in my questions of when I fight for crown, right? That's again the goal. So I'm currently a protege. I have a pelican here in Meridia's, Darth Sabella, and yes, I said Darth Sabella, not Dame Sabella, because it's an accurate descriptor. So what is your thoughts on non-peers, right? So an unbelt winning crown being associated to a peer, and how that plays into that? Either one of you, from your, not just in your own experience, but in experience with friends of yours or that sort of thing. Because I asked this, I know it has caused issues here in Meridia's. There was a past queen that had a pelican at the time, and there was a laurel had a peer at the time, and when there was some controversy within their reign, then there was some controversy within that relationship as well, and that sort of, you end up being your boss's boss, right? Because the king or the queen then becomes the boss of the peer, but then it sort of becomes a reverse thing. So what's your thoughts on that? That's an interesting approach. It's an interesting sort of conundrum, I guess.
It all harkens back to communication, right?
Right.
So I think two people sitting down and having conversations, if there's a lot of contention and a lot of this roundabout, it doesn't sound like there's a lot of good conversation happening. Sure. So having that relationship, Kelsey and I definitely have that relationship. And it goes both ways. Mm-hmm. So being able to have the conversations and sit down and maybe figure something out, I think that's a very personal thing. Sure. But again, if you are in that position, if you were queen, and unfortunately, that's, in my opinion, that sort of trumps it. But being able to have the conversations, being open and honest about where you're coming from, and maybe figuring it out, I think that's sort of paramount.
Right.
But I'll correct you on one thing: queen or princess, it both trumps that relationship. You're princess first,
right?
At least for another 6 months.
Right.
That's sort of my thought. So I guess my, obviously it's not relevant for a little bit, right? But my sort of thought is that if I win crown when I am still belted, that I plan to remove my belt. And I've not spoken to my peer about that yet, but I guess now she'll know if she actually watches my show. It's a thing I plan to disconnect that relationship, because I think it's treat for the cat. Apparently my girlfriend has decided to follow between two peers. 5 likes get the treat for my cat.
I like it. Where's the rat? Where's the cat? Bring the cat.
Where am I? Come here. Nope, she's hiding. We'll get her in a second.
I'll hide.
All right. There's not a keister crawling in the background. Okay. Anyways, so I plan to hand my belt back, because I think it becomes a circular relationship for me, because I'm, whereas I'm not in fealty to my peer, and that's the whole thing. Like that, some I know some of the knights and squires. Hi, baby. Would you like a treat? No, you're gonna be shy. No. Okay. Some peers have their associates wear fealty through them, and some don't, and that's a whole thing. And like mine doesn't, right? But I still feel like that relationship then is a hindrance to, or would be a hindrance to my authority, I guess, as crown, or my job as crown, because then I'm having to play that circular logic of, well, it's my peer, so she's my boss, but then I'm the crown, so I'm her boss, and that breaks my brain. I couldn't handle that, right? and maybe I'm singular in that. I don't know, but yeah, but
No, it makes sense.
Set that aside.
But you have to remember your reputation too expands beyond the however long you are crown or coronet.
Sure.
And if they've got that, like with Kelsey, it's not just what I'm doing now.
Right.
Everything I do affects that path essentially.
Mm-hmm.
So I think having the forethought of her going where you may feel this way later, or you're doing this now as princess, it may affect you down the line.
Mm-hmm.
So be conscious of your decisions.
Sure. Well, again, and that's and it's weird because it's symbolic, right? Because even if I were to hand the belt back for that, and it's, hey, I'm handing this belt back for this 1 year, for this 6 months, whatever, right? It's symbolic. Everybody knows relationships, so the relationship doesn't change, right? That's an established thing. And I mean, I've only been belted since COVID, so like it's still even new to me. I got my belt at arm's distance. Like we had to do it because it was like, I want to do this now, but also like she was going to mail it to me. And I was like, no, I'm going to come get it from you. And like, I drove 6 hours to Georgia to get my belt because it was important to take it from her hand. Even though we had to literally do it with masks on it at a distance, but but yeah, but even though that symbolic handing back would be symbolic, the relationship is still there. It's still an obvious thing long term, right? It doesn't change my path or who I am, right? Yeah, interesting.
When you accepted the relationship, did you swear fealty?
I did not.
Okay, well then, at some level, were you to win crown, you wouldn't be in the same bind as if you had sworn fealty.
Correct, and that's sort of the thought I have. Like I know that's different for me, whereas it might not be for others who have sworn fealty to their knight or to their peer. And that's the whole thing. I know that irks some people. People swearing fealty through their peers is a controversial topic. That may be a whole other stream topic, honestly, because that's a whew.
It is. Fealty is a can of worms, and it's the thing when I first started in the SCA, I asked about most, and it's one of my favorite topics because it's an incredibly personal decision.
Agreed. I've done a whole stream on that one already. Which if you haven't seen that one, you should go back and watch my what is fealty talk because that's a one.
I will
do that one. Which anybody who notices, I have made an addendum to my wardrobe. This chain is now adorned. If anybody noticed that. So previously, and I admit this chain was an unadorned chain because in Meridies, the only regalia that is traditionally protected is the gold and silver chain. It's the black chain, so it doesn't matter. Well, Cormac decided he wanted to point out some actual obvious rules the other day, and I went, damn it, Cormac, you're right. And I have amended my regalia because of that. So, anywho, it came up during the fealty talk is why I talk about it, because I was wearing this, and I was like, this is not a fealty chain, even though it looks like it could be one. I get it, It
reminds me of years and years ago, at Penzic, there came into popularity a handbag that one wore diagonally across the body, and the strap for the handbag was white.
Oh, yeah.
So for a year or two, a lot of people kept seeing masters rather than somebody wearing a handbag, which became its own little, tempest in a teapot sort of thing.
Right.
But yeah, it's kind of, I don't think I would have looked at that chain and thought it was a knightly chain. Right. I tend to look for the gold and silver as well.
But not everybody has been playing for 25 years either and has that experience and knowledge.
Right. Well, and there's also, I have opinions about what chain should be protected, because when I see knight's chain, I think of like the chain you're wearing. It's obviously a linked, just singular link chain, right? It looks like a chain. Mm-hmm. Whereas yes, it is a Byzantine chainmail chain, right? It's a lot of the knights here in Meridies wear this sort of chain, so it's become sort of cultural of this is the knight's chain in Meridies, I guess.
Sure.
Piece. And that's that's a whole can of worms, I think, of looking at protected regalia, because I have opinions about that later. All right, so back on topic. Good God, we've wandered a bit there. All right. Any other questions from the audience? I think you guys have any last thoughts about sort of the approach of sort of the picking your consort? Anything of how you guys have dealt with it? Actually, have this. What problems have you guys had? What are your hiccups? Have you had a fight?
No fight.
No, I don't think we've ever had a fight. I can't even recall disagreements, though I'm sure we've had some. Can you?
No, I don't even think we've had disagreements. You and I we're really good at communicating with each other. Sometimes I think people are in my head and I start talking and they're like, what are you talking about? And I do that with Patrick a lot where I'm like, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, I have no idea what you're talking about, but I thought he was there and I thought he was ready to go. So again, being clear.
Right.
But I mean, every reign is going to have a hiccup. It might not be an interpersonal hiccup,
Sure.
but there's going to be something that comes up that you have to deal with. And we've had a couple of things in the principality. Like we passed a law, but it was something that you could do, not something that you
Gotcha.
It was a pleasure to. There was a situation where in certain tournaments, people were not called by their title, the title bestowed by Crown, and it was convention in the West, and so it was also convention in the Mists, and it was causing some friction, and I just didn't understand why they couldn't be called by their given title. So Sarah and I got our heads together and figured, like, wow, this is something that we can just, fix.
Right.
So after talking about it some, we had a law made, and we passed a law that made it so that if you enter a tournament, whatever title you have that's given by Crown or by any monarch should be used should you wish it.
Right.
And that ended that for the better.
Interesting. That's an odd problem to have, but I'm glad you fixed it, I guess. Yeah.
It was a cultural problem. It was something that the West was different, at least for the last decade or more, I think. And people were used to it until some people felt it was limiting them.
Sure. Interesting. All right, we have one more question coming up in chat here, and I think we're going to close it out. Can you talk a little about imposter syndrome? Have you ever had a moment of "I'm not worthy," specifically as either as a peer or as Coronet? And then how did you deal with that? Sarah has thoughts over there. I see the face. Like go ahead, Patrick.
Oh, go!
I'm loving her face though. That's.
Go, Sarah, go.
The week before Patrick fought in Cornet, this is back in the before times when you could go out to eat with people.
Mm-hmm.
I was having dinner with, it was a group of people. One of them happens to be good friends of mine who are a Duke and Duchess. They have reigned here, but they've reigned elsewhere as well. Mm-hmm. And people were like, oh, this is so exciting. Patrick's fighting for you. And I was like, yes, it is. Like, well, why do you want to be princess? And I was like, I don't really know. I think I'd be terrible at it. But
good start.
The idea of serving, I really like.
Mm-hmm.
And being able to give back has always intrigued me. That's why I like service. It's kind of, I'm a helper.
Sure.
And she literally told me to, well, she called bullshit. I'll just say that. That's what friends are for, right? In the middle of the restaurant, mind you. And really made me sort of reevaluate that. And she says, you really need to find it in yourself. Why? Because saying that is not, it's not that it's not good, but you're going to have to find a reason why you want to do this. Besides, you want to get, like, there's more to this, and there's so much more to this, as you'll learn. So she's like, pull your head out of your backside and figure it out, Sarah.
It's sort of like you have to have that elevator speech of why do you want to be crowned? Like, it's whereas your actual opinion doesn't affect the outcome of the day, right? So you could say, I don't know, I like a shiny hat, and that's a good reason. And whether Patrick wins or not, it doesn't matter what your opinion was. But I think from the inspirational aspect of being Coronet or being crowned, you wanting it, I think, matters a lot. So yeah, that makes sense.
Right. And who am I? I'm kind of a nobody. Like, that's why.
She says things like that. She's kind of a nobody. In her 4 years or so in the SCA, she knows more people, is familiar with more people than I am in the West.
Right.
So she's doing something that certainly I am not. So I'm not sure that she's a nobody. In fact, I'd rather doubt it. It's her character. She gets along with everybody, or nearly so.
Based on, so when you said 4 years, I was waiting for 4 years in this kingdom and then 4 years. Like I was waiting for the rest of it, and when you stopped, and I was like, 4 years? All right, because yeah, I don't see that from you. I see, like lifelong experience from just your general personality. So yeah, I agree with His Highness.
I told you, there's no toe dipping. It's like
Yeah.
full on running into the waves. Like that's just how I am. That's part of my personality.
You and I are going to be good friends, Sarah. That's the thing.
Yeah.
And that's how I approach life as well.
Yeah, tell my pelican that. She's always like, ah!
That was my first admonition or admonishment from my pelican was, Cal, you're doing a lot. Are you good? It's a lot of stuff you got going on, because I was very busy all of a sudden, and it's because when I was like, COVID's starting. Nope, we're doing stuff, and I launched a YouTube channel, and I took on a kingdom office, and I was like because I did all the things. So yeah, no, I feel that pain.
I think when I started there a year into the SCA, I was training how to be an event steward, and within a year and a half, I was running events. I've been here 4 years, I've run 6 events. So
nice. That's
But then there are times where I just told her, please don't let me ever do this again. And I wrote it in big letters and submitted it to her. Please don't ever let me do this again.
If I ask, tell me no. Yeah.
Yes. She'll be my excuse. And thank you for doing that.
Yeah. That's a good, maybe that's another topic for a Coffee with Cal, is the role of a peer as buffer, as safeguard.
As much as she would hate to talk in public, she'd be a good one for that. And I'm gonna get a text message here in a few minutes.
Well, when you're done getting yelled at about that, let her know. I'd be more than happy to have her on for that conversation. So, all right. So, Your Highness, did you have thoughts about imposter syndrome or the "I'm not worthy" moment?
I'm trying to think back. I mean, I've been a knight for 22 years or so. And if there was ever, it would have probably been in my early days of knighthood. Mm-hmm. But I honestly, nothing comes to mind. But I will say, all right, this is about rating couples. And this may sound a little funny, but still very true. Make sure at least one of you can hear well. My hearing is terrible. I literally have to ask people to repeat themselves in person quite a bit. And so when you're sitting at court and, so the person before you, like you're giving away an award or so on, is speaking, often I can't hear them. Mm-hmm. So Sarah has become my ears for the last year or so.
But again, it's a balancing. You had a deficiency. You found someone who was able to help you balance that. I think that's regardless of whether it's a physical or a organizational thing, you found your counterbalance. So that's perfect.
I had planned, should I reign, and of course I did, but I didn't get around to doing it yet since our reign became virtual rather than continue on being in person, to get a horn, one of those hearing horns kind of thing, and hold that in court and make that part of the shtick. But haven't gotten around to it yet.
All right, so if you do this, you have to, I have a funnier addendum to it. Give it to your herald to herald you in with, and then take it from him mid-court. That would be funny. So it's both a trumpet and a horn. It would be perfect.
I think we could agree. I'm sure he would do that.
Yeah, that's the kind of shtick I enjoy in the court. So, all right. Well, I want to, let's do this. Yeah. That, my friends, is an empty cup of coffee. I'm jealous of your cup, by the way. I'm going to point that out there.
Very pretty cup.
I like those cups, man. I'm jealous. That is an empty cup of coffee, and this has been an amazing hour. Thank you both for joining me. This has been a lot of fun. I think I've learned a lot and sort of got some opinions and some thoughts, and I've already got 3 more different Coffee with Cal streams playing in my head now. I've got to play because of this conversation. That's always that's sort of my goal for these streams is when something comes up, I'm like, oh, there's another topic. I can add that to. I have literally a list of topics that I just pick from on occasion. So But thank you both for joining me. This has been a blast. So, any final thoughts from either of you before I go into all my show plugs, or do you have any shows you want to plug or anything coming up in the Mist you'd like to talk about?
Well, first, I'd like to say that this is a thought, I guess, more than anything else. As soon as, we're capable again, fighting Crown. Even if, you might think, oh, I'm not going to win anyways, it doesn't matter. The experience is worth it, and you never know. It's the best person on that day. It's not the best fighter, it's just the best fighter on that day. So you never know. As far as things to pay attention to, probably a lot of people know about Ask the Knights, Between Two Peers, two of my favorites. I guess that's it. Sarah?
I was waiting for the Great Fighters of YouTube. I was waiting for that.
That's a good point. Every Tuesday, I do log into the Great Fighters of YouTube, something run by some people in the West and attended by people from all over, and everyone's welcome, where we look at videos from YouTube of past SCA fights and critique and speak about and talk about style and conventions in different kingdoms for fighting and so on. It's actually very interesting.
Awesome. Sarah, anything from you other than that?
If we're talking about shows, I really I would love to plug Between Two Roses. They are being as isolated as Lockhawk is. They are bringing the SCA to them, and I think that's kind of wonderful. They get to experience all kinds of people. I think they've talked to almost all the royalty, and now they're doing a lot of their local baron and baronesses. And it's really, it takes the SCA from the entire world and really puts it into the palm of your hand, which I think is really cool.
Right. That's one of the things I think I've enjoyed the most. Where, I've enjoyed being on camera. I've enjoyed talking to people and sort of getting to know people, but getting to see the interkingdom anthropology from different places and learning different things. Like I've sort of like everybody sort of builds their their elevation ceremony in their head and their coronations and it's like you're planning your wedding day. You're always sort of planning those thoughts. So when I saw like the Helga's the collar of swords thing,
I love that.
I was like, I'm doing that. Like that's what I think I've enjoyed the most, is finding those little weird traditions from other kingdoms that are things that I never would have seen outside of, because I'm likely not going to get the West anytime soon. I'm more likely to do it now than I would have been 6 months ago, right? Because I've got friends out there now. But yeah, it's definitely seeing those little traditions and learning those little things that are from other kingdoms or even other countries has just been a ton of fun. So yeah, I agree with that. So yeah, look out for all those shows. As far as coming up on Kalbardr's Corner, so next week we will be joined. I'll be joined again by Duke Sir Sean, and we'll be talking about franchise on What Makes a Night. So again, another show that came out of the Crapeau, and I think this series is going to be just a ton of fun. And then the following Sunday, the next Coffee with Cal, I'll be joined by one of my favorite Westies, the Honorable Lady patent pending Katrina Yarborough, talking about volunteers and officership within the SCA. Basically, how not to be dicks to your volunteers.
No, she trained me. She was actually the one that trained me to event steward.
Yeah. Before
I had up here. Yeah.
She's an amazing person. She's has wrote and is rewriting the event steward handbook for the West. So I'm looking forward to her, and I talk a lot about the business aspects of the SCA on the backside. So that's gonna be a lot of really fun conversation about how to treat your volunteers and officers and how to use them effectively without abusing them. So I think that's the tagline: how to use and abuse your volunteers. So. And as always, I have to throw up the grand wall of patrons. So thank you to all my Patreon subscribers. You guys are what's keeping this channel afloat. So YouTube and stuff costs money. So, or at least the production of these shows costs money. So if you like to support Kalbardr's Corner and all the channels we support, because it's not just my channel, please look us up on Patreon, patreon.com/Kalbardr's Corner. Not only do you get your cool name on the wall, there's also some physical things, board games, and other fun rewards. With all that being said, make sure to like, follow, comment, subscribe, do all those YouTube, Facebook things, because it helps us know that you're watching and that you love what we're doing. And every time I get to hear a little ding, it makes me go, yay! So do that if you want to hear me say yay. So,
and give the kitty a treat.
Yes, and the kitties get treats. So do that, and that's all the shows. Make sure you're going, and honestly, go to people's channels, go to Ask Night, go to Between Two Peers, go back and literally click all the shows and just like them. And then just like when you're bored, just put it in the background because those view counts make us feel better. Do that. Make us feel like you're actually watching and care about what we have to say. Because if not, we're gonna stop doing it. And we don't want that. So
No.
all right. All that being said, thank you both for joining me. Thank you all out there in the Facebook and YouTube worlds for joining me. This has been Patrick, Sarah, and Kalbardr in Kalbardr's Corner. Good morning, everybody.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.